Hey guys, Chris here, and I'm a Ukrainian Canadian. Today's June 3rd, 2023. Now let's get to the news happening in Ukraine, shall we? Today, I first want to discuss the Zaporizhia direction. And thankfully, there's some very positive news coming out of there. So, a pro Russian blogger by the name of Slatkov, who has a Telegram channel, has been having, mostly reassuring posts. He's been known for that. However, today has not been a very reassuring because his latest post talks about unpleasant situations happening in Zaporizhia for the Russian army. And he says here that our positions are under heavy artillery fire. I know a lot of bad details, but I won't reveal them. Hundreds of shells are flying at us, zero in response. What kind of war is this? Counter battery fire as the primary constantly used method of countering enemy artillery is absent in our special military operation. It doesn't exist no matter what anyone says. And lastly, he points out that, and they don't say that in reality, the Ukrainian artillery beats the Russian one, which no one could even imagine be the case a year ago. Crazy, right? But I'm not surprised. Ukraine has some of the most modern artillery systems in the world right now. It is adaptable, it is mobile. They have the HIMARS systems, they have the MLRS 270s, they have the Archer, or they will be getting the Archers because we haven't seen them in action, but the Caesars, the Panzer Haubitze 2000s, and even now we've been seeing more and more of these Mitsubishi pickups with the small MRS systems, about 4 or 6 of them being mounted at the back and just launching them and then leaving the area. Super mobile. So the Ukrainians have definitely, if not hit the parity, in certain situations, they even have the upper hand. And it seems like in the Zaporizhia direction right now, they definitely do have the upper hand. Most likely because the Russians have been wasting too much time trying to take Bakhmut, pulling a lot of resources that they could have been using in other directions. So overall, the situation is not looking good for the Russians, which is great in Zaporizhia, because this is where we're all expecting a massive offensive, counteroffensive to happen. And Zelensky today also mentioned that officially the counteroffensive has started. So I'm expecting great things to happen in the next few weeks because, as well, Berdyansk, Yurivka, Henichensk, Mariupol have been getting pounded in the last 1 to 2 weeks as we've seen more and more explosions happening there. And the Storm Shadow missiles have definitely been playing a key part in all of these explosions. So let's take a look at the map as well in terms of the cities that I've mentioned previously. So between Berdyansk and Mariupol, there's a small little resort town by the name of Yurivka, as you can see here. So it's very small, but apparently there was a group of Russian forces here just taking a small little vacation by the sea, but they were hit by a Storm Shadow missile. They were greeted by a nice British missile. And so this was one very effective strike, hundreds of them dead, allegedly. Then yesterday in Berdyansk, the port of Berdyansk was hit. Most likely an ammunition facility, storage facility within the port of Berdyansk, or a command post. Then Henichensk was hit recently as well. So this is the new capital of the Russian-occupied Kherson Oblast. They had to move it because the previous capital was in Kherson, but obviously due to the HIMARS range, they had to move it to Henichensk. And obviously the weekly Melitopol strikes and Mariupol strikes are always happening. So what Ukraine is currently doing is softening the Russian positions at the back, right? The very deep Russian positions, whether it be the grouping of forces or the ammunition storage facilities or other logistical supply lines. Ukraine is doing that, or even government administrative buildings. Ukraine is just trying to hit everything because it's good that Russia has 3 lines of defenses here, but if they don't have the resources, aka ammunition and weapons, to fire at the Ukrainians once they start their offensive, and they don't have the forces as well capable of defending this entire front line. Because guys, this is large, it's like over 200 kilometers long, this entire front line. It's extremely difficult to defend the entirety of it right? And so if they don't have the forces also defending this first, second, third line of defense, they're going to get crushed, which is what we hope is going to happen. So the next thing I want to discuss is Prigozhin. So Prigozhin mentioned that because he withdrew from Bakhmut, a goodwill gesture from Wagner, and now he says that the Russian Ministry of Defense has put explosive devices along the routes of Wagner's withdrawal, and he supposes that it was an attempt to publicly wipe his force. And it smells like Prigozhin is just trying to build a case for a possible takeover after Putin. This has been ongoing for many months now, where he's been publicly criticizing whether it be Shoigu, Gerasimov, and other institutions within the Russian government. But he hasn't been really taking aim at Putin. So it's still unclear what the relationship between Putin and Prigozhin are right now is. But an interesting article mentions that it's possible that Putin is still backing Prigozhin. So they still have a mutually beneficial relationship right now. And it's mostly because of how badly Putin's special military operation in Ukraine is faltering. And it is conceivable that the Russian president is deploying Prigozhin to set up Shoigu and Gerasimov as fall guys, right? This has been ongoing for many months already. We've been hearing Prigozhin constantly taking aim at those two men. And to that end, Prigozhin may or may not be an unwitting accomplice. Nonetheless, he's a willing player, even if the endgame is not clear. And to me, it's very clear because I've even seen posters. The Russian elections are also happening very soon. And I've seen posters of, Prigozhin somewhere in Russia, and with the writing that he's a strong leader for Russia. So I think Prigozhin is definitely looking at the possibility of being Russia's next president, right? And there's definitely vultures, flying around Putin, and they're smelling the weakness within Putin right now. Putin is definitely feeling that he's a prey. He's not the predator anymore. And it's definitely happening. It's definitely happening. So Prigozhin could be one of the men that could be Russia's next leader, which is a pick your poison type of situation because he's no better than Putin, unfortunately. So let me know what you guys think about this. Now, I don't usually cover, outside world news, but unfortunately, I think this is worthy of a mention because it's a terrible accident that happened in India, in the Balasore district of Odisha state. 261 people have been confirmed dead so far due to a train derailment and crash, where a train derailed and struck two other trains. So 261 people killed and 900 more have been injured. It's terrible news, and thoughts and prayers for the Indian people that are affected. And it's one of the worst train crashes since the 1990s in the country. So hoping that this will force India to do even more to ensure rail transit safety in the country, because we've seen, the videos of these packed up trains in India, super unsafe, even people going on top of the roofs of the trains sometimes just to get a ride. It's absolutely unsafe, and, it's not surprising why there's so many dead, right? So hoping that in the future there's going to be more strict regulations and more safety being applied. So again, my thoughts and prayers for the Indian people. And lastly, we've all been covering the raids in Belgorod, and the Russian liberation is going according to plan in Shebekino. This resident is talking about Russian commanders looting vacant apartments, including his. As you can see, they stole everything, all the money that he hid, and all the valuables. And he says, such a difficult time, and yet, our own people are stealing. Not surprising. Not surprising, guys. I mean, you guys already have seen all the videos. Stealing and looting is part of the Ruski Mir. It's the Russian world. And I have no doubts that once a total collapse will happen in Russia, right, the government loses power, there's a power vacuum, the Russians will eat each other like spiders if necessary. They'll do this, right? They're pretending that they're a loving, great nation. They have, they're heartwarming, values, and that, God is on their side. But look at what they're doing to each other, right? And this is just a small little raid that's ongoing in Shebekino. So I'm not surprised by this behavior, and I'm confident that this is going to happen. Even, it's going to be worse once, Russia completely collapses. There's no doubt about it. So that's the video for today. Very short, but let me know what you guys think about the Prigozhin situation, about the Zaporizhia front. Do you expect the Ukrainians to pull off a move within June or maybe even July? And that's it. Please subscribe to my channel if you enjoy my content, and I will see you guys in the next video. Thank you and take care.